All right. Well, we would like to welcome everyone to our last installment of this amazing WMPJ virtual Spring Assembly series. And tonight we're going to be focusing on the issues of anti-war, anti-militarism, abolition. For those who don't know, I'm John Peck. I'm on the board for WMPJ, work with Family Farm Defenders and some other organizations. I was asked to help moderate tonight, along with Dina Eccles, who's with us from Echo Valley Hope. And I just wanted to sort of preface, we have three really great speakers tonight who are going to share some thoughts on these topics in a little bit. But I did want to share, people probably heard the news today that several hundred students have already been picked up all across the country and are in the process of losing their visas and being deported otherwise for their work on these types of issues. Um, I'll admit that I'm a graduate of Columbia University, so when I heard what had happened to students there, I was very disturbed. When I was a student there, I did lose my dean's fellowship because of my anti-apartheid work,
Oh, I
but I was
didn't
not
know that.
deported or expelled from the university for that. So this is much, much worse, this situation we're in now.
Mm.
And I just wanted to share and I'm sure Elias, who's with us from the Madison World Beyond War group, who's at Madison College, will tell you more about. I personally am very worried about some of my students at Madison College possibly being targeted for their work on these issues on campus. So I just wanted to put that out there. It seems we're in sort of a new war on freedom, free expression or something. Civil liberties are being targeted. And peace activism is sort of being criminalized, which is a sad situation to be in, which is why I think it's really important that we're going to have this conversation tonight and see how we can find solidarity and build support around these issues in all our different movements and struggles. And I also wanted to just share that, I mean, there's sort of a spectrum of feelings about this, and we may have some different feelings expressed tonight or opinions about the how to deal with war and anti-militarism. There are some people who are very strict pacifists about these issues. I'll admit that my own ancestors volunteered to fight in the Civil War because they thought it was slavery was wrong. My ancestors also volunteered to fight in World War II because they thought fascism was wrong. So there are going to be some efforts to deal with injustice in the world may not always be totally pacifist. I guess I'm just saying that and I quite respect communities who engage in self-defense as their last resort to protect themselves from state terrorism or other forms of colonial violence. So that's just something to be aware that we might have that spectrum of discussion this evening. I also wanted to bring up the topic of destruction of property.
Mm.
Because some people feel that destruction of property is a form of violence. I myself personally have not had problems pulling up surveyor stakes from a project I didn't think was appropriate, or labeling fraudulently sold GMO foods at the store, which is also actually, those who don't know, that's a felony violation of corporate property damage. So I myself don't have problems with that, but some people may find any form of property destruction or so on as a form of violence. And we're definitely seeing this now as well, that the definition of terrorism is being extended to anyone at a Tesla dealership who may be maligning Tesla, or anyone questioning pipelines, or anyone. So that's just another angle to be aware of in this conversation of, at what point do we step in to try to, well, as Mario Savio said back in, my mom happened to hear him in Berkeley when he gave this speech. At what point do you put your body on the machine, and how do you stop the machine? So something to be thinking about as well. And so I just wanted to also just maybe wrap up before we introduce our speakers about the idea that, absence of war or absence of overt violence doesn't mean that there's peace.
Mm.
So people can be totally crushed and um, so desperate to just survive that they can't even say anything, but that doesn't mean there isn't violence going on. I mean, a lot of the forms of violence we encounter in society are a little bit more subtle. Sometimes people just internalize the cop in their head, and we're seeing this now with the crackdown on campuses. The whole idea is a silence dissent, make people live in fear, abandon any hope of alternative or social change. And I just wanted to remind people, part of our hope in the network, I think, is to give people a positive alternative to the status quo. And I would argue the military-industrial complex is our entrenched status quo, and by extension into the military, prison industrial. I mean, we can see all sorts of forms of systemic discrimination and violence in our society today. So I'm hoping our speakers tonight will talk a little bit more about not only the challenges they're facing being part of the anti-military, anti-war movement, but also like some of their hopes or aspirations of where they see avenues for us to bring about a better world. So, and we know a better world is coming because I can hear her breathing, to quote Arundhati Roy. So with that, I'd like to introduce, we have 3 speakers this evening, and there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So we have Sela Bar with a Jewish Voice for Peace. We have Elias Lyman, who's actually a student I know at Madison College. He's with the Madison World Beyond War. And then we have Natalka Akulenko, who will be talking about sort of the situation in Ukraine with Friends of Ukraine. So I think maybe we'll have, and we're hoping each speaker could speak for like 10, 15 minutes. We'll have time for Q&A. So Sela, would you like to begin? Share your thoughts, inspirations?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Sela, and many of you know me. I've been an Palestine solidarity activist since mid-'80s. DC, Berkeley, and then came here and helped to form Madison Rafa Sister City Project. And that I was there for about 22 years, also leading JVP Madison, and then JVP Madison got enormous after October 7th, and so I had to take a back seat on Madison Rafa, but I used to order crafts from the Gaza and the West Bank, and I'll talk about that later. So this issue is very near and dear to my heart, and it's just been super painful. It's been very painful. But yes, I'm a member of the Madison chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace. For people who don't know, Jewish Voice for Peace is a national organization with over 60 chapters around the country. It is the largest progressive Jewish anti-Zionist organization in the world. As Jews of conscience, we stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, firmly opposing the U.S.'s immoral support of Israel's assault on Gaza and the West Bank. We demand an end to the genocide in Gaza, the occupation of the West Bank, and the apartheid system in Israel. We support Palestinian self-determination and envision a world where both Palestinians and Israelis live in peace, sharing resources equally and working towards a better future. We understand that there is no military solution to the Israel-Palestine issue. Both Israeli and Palestinian safety are inextricably linked. Since the Israeli government's war on Gaza began, over 61,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed. The real death toll is thought to be over 200,000, and this includes 18,100 children. More than 22,000 children are reported missing. The Israeli military has devastated entire neighborhoods and cities and has decimated Gaza's healthcare infrastructure, water supplies, electricity grid, schools, universities, and cultural institutions. It is understood that this destruction follows 76 years of Israel's systemic oppression and dehumanization of Palestinians. As Jews committed to democracy, we oppose the repression of free speech going on right now in this country, evident in the silencing of opposition voices. Criticism of Israel's actions is not anti-Semitism. Labeling it as such is a tactic to dismantle the Palestinian rights movement, progressive organizations, institutes of higher education, and civil liberties. This assault on free speech doesn't protect the vulnerable. It is meant to stifle opposition. It starts with limiting speech about Palestine, but it won't end there. Once freedom is suppressed, it spreads, silencing anyone who challenges the narrative of the powerful. We must stand against the repression of ideas, including those that oppose Israel's apartheid system and genocide in Gaza. The Jewish faith is rooted in justice and the sanctity of life, not militarism or nationalism. Our demands are free Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Öztürk, and others that have been wrongfully imprisoned for exercising the right to free speech. End U.S. support to the war on Gaza, stop funding the war, and demand Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. And lastly, resume negotiations for a long-term solution that respects both Palestinian and Israeli autonomy. The U.S. was built on freedom of speech and assembly. As these rights are threatened, we must stand united in defense of democracy. There's many actions that you all can take. For instance, you could join Jewish Voice for Peace. You don't have to be Jewish. You can attend some of our upcoming events and actions. You can also sign up for our emails, which contain information on actions, lectures, events, and petitions about the Israel-Palestine issue. So the links are in the chat for finding us on Facebook, Instagram, and our email address. Something coming up soon is the annual Passover Seder and potluck dinner. We had one last year and it was really successful. Huge number of people came, both Jewish and non-Jewish. It's Saturday, April 19th, 6 to 8 p.m. at Arboretum Co-housing on the west side, near West Side. And last year we put together a very meaningful and powerful Liberation Haggadah. That was really, people really loved it. So if you're interested, it'd be a great way to find out about us and meet us in person. There's a link to sign up to what food you can bring, if you could bring food. Another really important event coming up is on April 23rd. It's the Wisconsin Right to Boycott Lobby Day. This was discussed, I believe, on Wednesday by Julia Greenberg, who's another JVP Madison member. So we've joined with groups all around the state in an effort to repeal this unconstitutional anti-BDS law. We think we have a good chance of winning, but we need all of your help. If you can't make it, please contact your state reps. For more information on that, if you could put the link to the, it's like a link tree. It has all the information. So I don't want to go, I know that Julia talked about it on Wednesday, but for people who, just real quick, for people who don't know, this was during the Walker administration. It's called the Wisconsin Act 248, and it was passed in 2017, I think. It prohibits state and local governments from entering into contracts with any entity that engages in a refusal to deal with Israel if the refusal is intended to penalize, inflict economic harm, or limit commercial relations with Israel. So it turns out that this is unconstitutional. Singling out and attempting to prevent a boycott of Israel while permitting other boycotts is viewpoint discrimination, which is a violation of the First Amendment. So please, check out the link tree, sign up for the lobby day, or contact your your legislative people. We have some May events coming up. We might be able to get a doctor out of Gaza to speak. We've been working on that. So if you're interested in that, just keep checking our social media accounts. Also, if any of your organizations want to have a presentation by one of our members, we're available for that. And I also wanted to put in just a small list of all the articles, resources, donation ideas, and actions. Judy, you put those in. There's a good article on the No Other Land, the Palestinian film that won the Best Documentary. I think we need to work hard to get that in Madison if possible. I put in an article on Mahmoud Khalil. Petitions on freeing Mahmoud Khalil are from the ACLU and Action Network. If you want information on ending U.S. military aid to Israel, you can you could go to this website from USPCR, which is the U.S., Palestine, I forgot the acronym, a few places to donate. And this is really tough because there's so many places to donate. Um, so as I was saying before, I was in charge for about 22 years from ordering from a few places in Gaza. I ordered as much as possible crafts and then sold them here in Madison. And one of them was the Al Society of the Deaf, and I got to visit there in 2012 in Gaza City, and it just is hard to even let my brain go there. It's bombed. They're working out of tents. I also ordered some gorgeous embroidery from the Salafa Embroidery Center that's also been bombed. So here's a link. There's a link that hopefully we can put in the chat. Middle East Children's Alliance is a really reputable organization that Madison Rafa has been working with for many years. So you can give money there. And the Middle East Children's Alliance is trying hard to raise money for a medical clinic in Rafah. And then for information and resources, you can go to the Madison Rafah Sister City Project website. There's a calendar of events there. For more information about Jewish Voice for Peace, you can just Google that. For information about what's going on, that you feel like you can't always just rely on the New York Times, there's many other resources like Al Jazeera. There is even a blog that Middle East Children's Alliance has with updates. And Mondaweiss is also a great source. So I'll end it there. I hope I didn't go over my time. So I know that's a lot, but yeah. So if you have questions, I guess save it to the end.
No, that's great overview and lots of great resources there. So and hopefully people can save some of the questions for the end. So thanks so much for that. Elias, are you ready to share some of your work with World Beyond War and being a college activist right now, the sense of how people are feeling on campus and how we can best support your work? And I know you have some events coming up at Madison College as well that you wanted to share with people, or well in the community as well, not just on campus.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready. I'm excited to be here. I didn't realize we had such a thriving community and so many different peace organizations that we're meeting so regularly. So I'm excited to be here for the first time. I've been working with World Beyond War for about a year now, since last fall. I've had some success this last semester building up a community at the college at MATC, and it's nice to be working with UW as well. We have had some really exciting events recently. I am a little nervous, I'm sorry, but thank you for having me again. We just had an event last month. We had our anti-war cafe, the first one that we did here in Madison, and it was a real success. I think we had about 55 people show up probably, and I think we're going to have more coming up at this next one. So the next one, I don't have the link with me right now, but I will share it with everyone. I'm just on my phone, so I can't share it right now. But the next one is going to be taking place on April 12th. And this is going to be also at the crossing. And that will be noon to 3 p.m. And it's going to have a lot of the same events, spoken word. Anybody can go up and say anything, spoken word, songs, arts and crafts. And it was a real success last time, so I want to have everyone there for this next one as well. And then
Could you repeat the date? I got mixed up.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't take my ADHD meds today, so I'm a little scatterbrained as
I
well.
get it.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. It's April 12th from noon to 3 p.m. And again, I hope we can have a lot of these different organizations represented there because there's a lot of space for it and many people are coming. So, and then at MATC, we are planning an event in April. This is going to be April 21st. The event is going to host Mark Pocan as a speaker as well to talk about militarism and his efforts in politics at reducing military spending and probably to some extent what's been going on at the federal level and budgeting wise. So I'm excited to have him and host him there. And we are also inviting other community organizations to have tables at this event. I would love to have each of your groups have a table at this event. The name of the event is Solidarity Against Militarism. The work that I've been doing at MATC is I'm gathering a bunch of different clubs. So we've got the Native American Student Association and Mi Gente, a Latin American-based club, and many others that we are trying to gather and have them all speak to their own perspective on how militarism has affected them and their communities and their culture. I think this could be a really, really amazing pairing and an opportunity to intermingle between our various peace organizations and these students that are anxious to come to terms with how this has affected their cultures and their professions and the things they're interested in. So it's going to be a really awesome event, and I hope to gather everyone there for that. That'll again be April 21st from 2 to 5 p.m. And I hope to link up with some of the various organizations here, and we can talk about it afterward as well with questions and whatnot. I think there is another event, but I'm not thinking about it right now. I think, we're showing the Palestine exception, which is about the suppression of the student movement, and that's going to be happening at UW. I'm not sure exactly what date that's going on. I think they're discussing 2 different dates, but hopefully I can grab that for you and send that out as well. As for the student suppression, I want to be able to speak to that from my own perspective a little bit around the militarism and what's going on in Gaza as well. In trying to gather the various club presidents for this event, everyone seemed relatively excited. I had several different presidents come to the first meeting in organizing this, but there's a lot of worry and hesitancy. A couple groups were trying to figure out if there's a way we can protect the students and make sure that we're safe in case anything were to happen, and also protect us by maybe trying to hold the dialogue around militarism, at least as the student groups, to shying away from some of the hotter topics. But we're not sure if that's the best course of action. Maybe just a moment of silence for the things they're asking us to stay silent about. We don't know if we want to talk directly about Palestine at the event. On top of that, we would instead focus on all of the different ways militarism has affected their various communities throughout history and up to modern times. That would just be for the students, but honestly, that doesn't even take the target off our back, because it seems like they're just targeting people that are speaking out against the American empire and militarism in general. So I'm just trying to get all these different groups. There's a new Muslim student organization there, and I want to host them there, and they are also a little anxious about potentially being targeted. And we have a really thriving student abroad program at MATC. There are a lot of visa students, or student abroad program is really well designed, and one of the better ones for community colleges. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. So today I had a meeting with the Clarion to host the event, and the questions also talked a lot about genocide in particular, and I had gotten questions a little late, so I didn't really have time to prepare. So I asked if we could just not talk about those and just focus on the event in the Clarion article, and what the organization has been doing. And it's just been in the back of my mind. The Clarion is the MATC student newspaper, sorry. Then today I went down to the safety office, and I spoke to them about trying to protect the students at the event and seeing what we could do in case ICE were to show up or anything. And they were concerned about the potential for protesters or if ICE does come, that they wouldn't be able to do anything. I do feel a little wary, but I really, the reason that there is an attempt to suppress this discussion is because this is an important time for it. It's imperative that we do have these conversations. It's imperative that we do build this community and that solidarity. We need these different voices to speak to how this has affected people, because it's not just what's happening right now. This has been 70 years, and all around the world. I mean, in every Latin American country, and domestically as well. Anyway, I feel a little scatterbrained. I'm happy to take questions. I didn't really prepare a specific conversation or thing to say. So I'll do better with questions, I think. But thank you for listening, and I'm really excited to host these events, and I hope that we can have all of your organizations come as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Elias, for sharing all that. And being at the, I'll admit, for full disclosure, I'm one of the faculty advisors for this group at the college. So I really respect the work that the students are doing, and I think we should all really be supporting young, because I mean, to be honest, students have always been right in the past in so many of these struggles, and they often are the first people to get punished for speaking truth to power and so on. So
I did
really
want to say
appreciate.
one other thing. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
For me, my pacifism comes from my being raised in a Quaker at the Quaker Church in Madison, and so this has always been a part of my faith as well. And even when I was struggling with my faith, this was always something that was the core tenet of mine. And for this to be something that we can't even really speak to is I mean, I mean, how can you not speak about peace? How can you not be able to speak about pacifism? How can you not be able to speak about just reducing what is insane military budget? So I just wanted to touch on that as well and give my own background a little. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, great. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I presumably all of us we didn't, sign a petition, get some money to do this. So we're all in it because our heart's in the right place. So we have our last speaker is Natalka Akulenko with the Friends of Ukraine group. So if you would like to share some of the latest on the situation in Ukraine, and I know a lot of people have been following this I've been following it for years now, and it just seems to be like one of those struggles that we can't. Anyways, you can share your thoughts about it. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It is possible that some of us don't always see eye to eye on important issues, so I appreciate the chance you gave me to speak. And I try to never turn down any requests for communication about Ukraine, because given the current situation, not much many of us can do, but what we can do is speak to other people. And can you see me? I feel like my camera is super murky. No, it's okay.
Yes, it's fine.
Thank you. So I decided, after some deliberation, I decided against preparing a presentation, with pictures and numbers, because I have done all this before. I feel like in how much information we're surrounded by, it's very easy for anyone who wants to know more to look up the facts and the numbers and see the pictures, of dead civilians and burning hospitals, and tanks in the streets and all that. So I decided to just speak. But I did send Judy. I sent you a few links for those who maybe, if you want to read Ukrainian news from Ukrainian sources in English, or follow a couple of podcasts that I like. So I just said just very basic links. And plus, Judy did share the website for our local group, Friends of Ukraine. So let me start with Friends of Ukraine. We are not a political organization. We have formed as a core group of mostly women after the full-scale invasion started 3 years ago, because suddenly our Ukrainian community here started growing exponentially. We used to have very few Ukrainians here, and most of those who were in Madison were connected to the university, so we're staff or students, so not really a community on an ethnic or national basis. But after the full-scale invasion, especially after the previous administration opened a so-called humanitarian parole a program that let many Ukrainians come into this country for temporary stay, legal stay, while the war is still going on. Our community grew a lot. We have a lot of families and young people, older people, mostly women and children who live here now. And so Friends of Ukraine, our mission is support this local community, to promote Ukrainian culture to our American friends here, and to keep our little diaspora going and Ukrainian culture alive, and teach our children and others what it's all about. So you're all very welcome to check our Facebook group, Friends of Ukraine, Madison, where we post both war news and political news, but mostly cultural stuff, and music, and all kinds of varied information about the war and about Ukraine. We also have our biggest event of the year in August that coincides with Ukraine's Independence Day in late August, and we are going to have this wonderful picnic with music and food and activities for families in Lakeview Park in Middleton. So you're all invited. Now, to speak about the war. The news that comes at us every day is overwhelming, and it's very tempting to turn away. And there is only so many things each of us can focus on, given the rapid development of the political situation, the news, the way that the U.S. political systems are changing in front of our eyes, and all the many new risks that many of us are facing. But for those of us who are in some way connected with Ukraine, or even just care about the future of Ukraine and Europe and the world at large, this is not a topic we can turn away from. Today is 1129th day of the war. Many war crimes have been committed against Ukrainians in Ukraine, against the peaceful people of Ukraine. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian children have been abducted and are being re-educated and raised to be cannon fodder for Russians. On a daily and nightly basis, many cities and villages and residential and industrial objects are bombed by Iranian drones and Russian missiles and North Korean ammunition of all kinds. And that includes ballistic missiles, intercontinental missiles, everything you can imagine is being thrown at Ukraine. The weapons are being tested on Ukrainians. The North Korean army is now practicing on how to conduct a modern war in Ukraine on the side of Russia. So for those who, at least initially, insisted that Ukraine should not be supported with any defense capabilities, I can't understand this point of view at all. If you're a pacifist, does this mean that you are content to watch a foreign army march into a village and rape and kill children and old people? Ukrainians did not ask this to happen. We're not a military nation. We're an agricultural nation with also well-developed industry, which is part of the reason why Russians really want Ukraine, not parts of Ukraine, but all of it, to take over the agriculture, the land, resources, and the industrial, the highly developed industry that Ukraine has, including building planes and rockets and such. They have been stealing Ukrainian grain and selling it since the start of the full-scale invasion, and the sanctions have tempered it somewhat, but Russia has plenty of friends and helpers around the world who buy its products, including this stolen grain and oil and such. They are being helped by these various regimes, Iran and North Korea and others, with weapons that are aimed at Ukrainians. And I'm all over the place. I did not write down a plan, kind of like Elias. Just speak from my brain.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, to those who think that negotiations might be necessary, negotiations have never stopped, but they have absolutely no meaning, because in 3 years, and moreover in the 11 years since Russians started this war and invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine, never once have they softened any of their positions. They basically, their own negotiation requirement or demand is that Ukraine surrender. But why? Ukrainians are an amazing, well-honed army with, we used to have the support of the American military material. Now that is under question, but Europe is now going to spring into action, because what's going to happen next? Should Ukraine fall? Should Russia, helped by others, achieve its goal and enter Ukraine and commit the genocide that they have openly called for? What's going to happen next? Do you think they're going to just be happy, content being in Ukraine? Or are they going to go to the Baltic countries next? Why is it that Estonia is spending proportionally more than any country in the world on helping Ukraine with weapons? Why is it that Lithuanians are fighting with Ukrainians, and Lithuanian government is calling to increase the military spending in Europe? Even Germany and France, Britain has been an ally and a friend the whole time, but even these Western European countries that might not feel the immediate pressure, they know where things are going. The rule-based international order is over, thanks to the fact that Russia was not stopped, that Ukraine never got enough help to win, but rather to defend itself with the last bit of its strength. So no one stopped Russia. And should this continue, should Russia get more and more assistance and less resistance from the world community, the rest of the world order will crumble. And then anyone who believes in the power of might will feel free to go and invade other countries and annex other people's territories and split the world into new spheres of interest and influence. But will those mighty countries who want to colonialize others, will they be content at that? Will they then sit quietly in their own spheres of interest and not interfere with each other? I doubt it. So it's in everybody's interest that Ukraine keeps receiving the assistance. Ukrainian army is now the mightiest in Europe. It's well-trained, very enthusiastic army, supported by the entire society. Ukraine is a vibrant democracy. Many people don't like Zelensky. I don't like Zelensky, never voted for Zelensky, but it doesn't mean that he is we don't support him while he is president. He's part of our society, and he has to do his part while we do our part. Whereas Russia, they've had the same quote-unquote president since 2000, the year 2000. So, in conclusion, I guess, my goal is to ask you all to, if you want, to follow the news from Ukraine from from those news sources that are more interested, invested in this thing, in the war and in Ukraine. And if you want, I attached like an action sheet that Judy can share with you that says you what to say if you feel inclined to call the representatives and talk to them about what we need to do to support Ukraine. And I hope certainly that many of you will help us put pressure on the government, the positive pressure, the support to the American government to not abandon Ukraine and not take the other side of this conflict. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Natalka, for sharing that. It's a very painful situation to be discussing, but we really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and solidarity that you have for other struggles beyond just Ukraine's, obviously. So we wanted to, I guess, I don't know if Dina, if you had any opening thoughts before we break into Q&A, or if you know, I mean, we now have time just for questions and answers from everybody here. So feel free to raise your hand if you wish, or
Yeah, I just want to say this. It's been wonderful to hear you all. And I'm really glad that it's going to be recorded and shared. And I look forward to the question and answers because I'm sure it's going to be powerful.
Deborah, I saw you had your hand raised. Yep.
Yes. This is for, I hope I say your name correctly, Natalka. Did I say that correctly? Oh, okay. Here in America,